What is up, everybody? In this video we're going to be making an axe throwing target board. So for materials we're going to need 3 8-foot 2x10s and a sheet of plywood or similar material. You need it to be at least 58 inches tall by 50 inches wide. So the first thing we're going to want to do is cut all those 2x10s in half so each one is 4 feet long. And once they're all 4 feet long, we're going to position them with 5 boards vertical and then the 1 remaining board horizontal at the top. Now once they're situated in the right configuration, we just need to mark all of the overhang sections so we can trim them down and make sure everything lines up. So with everything cut down to size, we can position our backboard over the 2x10s. So one note here is if your 2x10 boards have a decent amount of knots on them, try to make sure that the majority of those knots are facing the backboard, so basically not facing the actual target side. Since the knots are more dense than the rest of the board, they may prevent the axe from sticking into your target. So now what I'm doing here is I'm just marking where the 2x10s are on the back of the board. I'm using the speed square here just to make sure my lines are straight, and then I'm just going to trace it out so I know exactly where, when I put screws in, where those are going to be sitting on the boards. So for this project we're going to be using some 2-inch multi-purpose screws, and we're going to just use a bunch of them, put them in all the corners of the 2x10 boards just to secure it in place. Now with everything secured into place, we can lift it up and give it a look, and it is looking good. Now to start adding the target. So I had this straight trim piece laying around that I used to find the center of the vertical boards, which will be the center of our target. And I just add a nail into the center here to help me trace out the target. And here I use a piece of cardboard that I had laying around and punch the nail through the middle. And we'll use this cardboard as the stencil for our target. And for our target dimensions, I followed the diameters posted by the International Axe Throwing Federation. So the bullseye is 7 inches in diameter. And then the 3-point target is 17 inches in diameter. And finally, the outer 1-point line is 27 inches in diameter. And to trace out the target circles, I tie a paracord string around the center nail and wrap it around my pencil. And then I bring the pencil to the distance of each of my diameter marks and trace them out. Now I just add some staples to hold down the cutout stencil target just to make sure the paint doesn't bleed through any of the edges. Then I figure the target's purpose is to get chopped up by axes, so a few staples won't cause much harm. And then I just go through and spray paint the black targets. Now with the main target added, we can add our clutches. And clutches are 2 inches in diameter, and they're in the upper right and left hand corners of the main target board, and they are worth 7 points each. And instead of using my string here to cut out a perfect circle, I just kind of mark multiple points here on the edges, and I'm just going to trace those out and cut them out with my box cutter. And with those cut out, I give it the same staple treatment as the original target and just give it a good coat of paint. And then we're ready to remove our stencil and see our target all complete. And I did want this target to have hangers so it could be attached to a fence or a similar structure. So I ended up taking 2 2x4 blocks and cutting them at 45 degrees using my table saw. And now we just need to attach those blocks to the back of the support board. And here I use that same piece of trim from earlier to line up the second hanger block before screwing it down just to make sure it's level with the first hanger. And then we can just add our screws. So I'd actually originally planned on hanging the target using these hooks and rings, but seeing as this thing actually weighs 113 pounds, I knew those rings and hooks wouldn't cut it, so I ended up using those 2x4 blocks instead. And here it is, all finished. I actually made this for my dad for his birthday, because earlier in the year we went to a throwing axe range, and we ended up having a lot of fun, so I figured it'd be kind of cool to make him one that he could just put up in the backyard and use whenever he wants. And I also got a pump sprayer, just so you can spray the front of the target with some water. It kind of just helps the boards from splintering too much as you throw the axes at it. And then of course the throwing axes and knives himself, I get a set of 3 axes and 3 knives. And as always, thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.